Hello everybody and welcome back. So we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to try cleaning some artifacts. So I've said before, this whole channel is a little bit of an experiment in different communication styles. So today we're doing the classic looking at someone's hands doing something intricate and small and interesting ASMR style video, and we'll see how this does. So we're in my lab in New Haven, and we're going to look at some artifacts from a real site, and we're going to show you how they get cleaned. So this bag right here is from a site in Guilford, Connecticut called the Henry Whitfield House, and you can see this is the provenience information for these artifacts. The artifacts have to stay with this information, very important. So the first step when artifacts come into the lab is they have to get cleaned and prepared for identification and cataloging. So let me show you some. I'll introduce you to my very high-tech tools. Most important, a Amazon toothbrush, pack of 10 for about $2, and then I've got a couple of dental picks here, also probably about $10 for these two together, which I use in the field as well as in the laboratory, and we'll see there's some uses for that. But as I said, the most important tool is this tool brush and just a little bit of water. And some of these artifacts need to get cleaned with a dry toothbrush and some with a wet toothbrush. So yes, that reminded me I need a second toothbrush because I need a dry and a wet. So I went and grabbed one. Okay, so let's see what we have here. Let's pull out some artifacts. I'm just going to grab them randomly. Can't even really see what I'm grabbing here. And pull them over here. And take a look. This is a pretty typical historical archaeology site here in Connecticut. And so, there's some interesting stuff in here. Well, just for fun, we'll take a look at that. One of those. And I'd like to get some nice looking ceramics for you too, for us to look at. Okay, so let's take a peek at some of these artifacts right here. So the first thing I might do is just make some large categories of different kinds of artifacts. So we have some faunal materials, shell and bone, teeth. We have some metals, and we have some ceramics here. So let's start with these. Let's start with these faunal materials. So faunal materials like shell and bone usually don't get we don't like to wash those with water because they tend to be quite delicate. So we just very, very gently give this a brush. I don't mind leaving artifacts just a little bit dirty. I think it's better to, if there's any chance you're going to damage the artifact. This is perfectly identifiable for a faunal expert, so we don't need to go crazy there. Here's a different, again, right? Let's make some of these diagnostic features here, like these interesting ridges that might give us some clues about what kind of shell this is. This is a piece of quahog. Now, I'm not a faunal expert by any means, and frankly, I'm actually not an expert in any of these materials. I'm an archaeobotanist by training, so if any archaeologists are watching this, and I hope you are, and I'm wrong about any of these IDs, feel free to let me know in the comments. These are, of course, going to get another round of identification later on. We're not gonna, the IDs I'm doing here are just for our purposes. They'll get a more thorough identification level later on. So some of these faunal materials, very gently. You can see we have several different species of shell at this site. And here's a really interesting bit. This is actually a tooth of some kind of again, I'm not a faunal person, but I guess sheep or goat. This weird looking tooth, this big long tooth. And I'll pass this on. We have the faunal preservation at this site is really incredible. And so we get these green bones. In a second, I'll tell you a little bit about the site to give you some context about why we might be finding this particular type of artifacts at the site. But I might use my dental pick just to take out some of this material here. These are pretty tough pieces. This bone has been in the ground for a few hundred years, and it's still, well, tooth I should say, in pretty good shape, so I'm not really going to hurt it with a toothbrush and a dental pick. to be honest. Now, in terms of our metals here, we can see something interesting here. A couple of different kinds. I have some more nails too. Let me see if I can get a nice diagnostic sort of collection. Maybe some of this. I just want to pull one more thing. I want to wash some good stuff for you. This is one of the most relaxing activities that an archaeologist gets to do. Oh, there's a pretty one. Identifying all these artifacts. That's the one I was looking for. Identifying all of these artifacts will tell us a lot about this site. So, metals, again, we generally don't use water for. I want to take these very gently, and we could preserve these later on using a gentle acid. We'll sort of pick and choose what we do that for because it takes a lot of time and effort. But these different sorts of nails we have here. We actually have nails ranging a very long span of time right in this little collection here. Here's a beautiful example of a hand-wrought nail. Hand-wrought nails are typically older, 17th and 18th century. And we can see here this is sometimes called a rose head nail right here. You can actually see that this has been dropped on by a blacksmith and hammered into shape in this very gentle way. Squared body. It's a classic hand-wrought nail. There's a little bit of a hiccup in this particular site. And then this is a very typical machine-cut nail, which is a little bit later, 18th and 19th century. And then, of course, a very strange, modern, definitely 20th century screw nail thing that somehow ended up in here. So this is a complicated context, I'll say. And these are interesting. We get these, I think they're some kind of a roofing nail. They appear to be made of a different material, maybe a kind of brass. They're like these beautifully preserved. And I don't really know what period those are from. Context on the site, by the way. These artifacts are all from the Henry Whitfield House, as I mentioned before, which is the oldest house in Connecticut, one of the oldest houses in the country, built in 1639, but it was continually occupied all the way up into the 20th century when it became a museum. And we find artifacts from all of that span of time working out there. And this is a little bit of a mixed context. I'm seeing artifacts from really quite a wide range here looking at this. So for instance, this is roofing slate, which we know came from the house. It was removed in the 1860s from the house. So not particularly old. But actually now we can move on to a little bit of wet brushing. So we'll add a little bit of water to this to get these really clean. Very gentle. Very gently take off as much of the soil as we can. And this isn't actually typically how I would set up a cleaning station. So the Whitfield House is, as I said, the oldest house in Connecticut, one of the oldest in the country. The context we're working in at the site spans much of that time, and we get artifacts from all over Europe, England, Germany, France, as well as porcelains imported from China and Japan, as well as some artifacts that are locally made in Connecticut, including very possibly this piece of stoneware right here. As we move into our ceramics, I think this comes from an American-made ceramic maker located in Hartford. We did a little research on some pieces we had that had some diagnostic marks on them, and they turned out to be from a stoneware maker located in Hartford in the 1830s. So pretty cool, frankly, and quite beautiful actually too. But the rest of these ceramics, I think, this is another piece of possibly local stoneware. I really have to look at these a little more closely, because we also get these stonewares they're made in Germany and England, and I got to take a close look to figure out which one is which. We also have these. These are called refined earthenwares, and these all are almost certainly from England. The most dominant we have at the site is called pearlware. Different varieties of pearlware, which is a sort of late 18th century ceramic style, maybe into the early 19th century. Again, I don't have my ceramic dating ranges sitting in front of me. I promise you that I will double check anything that I say here. But if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments because I want to know. So, very simple, plain, either pearlware or creamware. I have to take a look at that. Pearlware and creamware is very similar, but slightly different ages. So, we'll get a look at it when we do our final IDs in a bit. More of a similar. Yes, in fact, I would probably guess that maybe this might be pearlware as opposed to the other one, which might be creamware. So you can see we just use this little bit of water and a very gentle brush with a toothbrush to remove as much of this soil as possible to make them easier to identify and go into long-term curation. All these artifacts will be cataloged, quantified, and then eventually curated on site at the Whitfield House. I showed you this before. This is a little bit of window glass that I washed before. Here's a pretty something interesting. We can see there. Look, see that little bit of color there. See if I can bring that closer. Oh, that does stay in focus. That's nice. You can see this. This is a hand-painted polychrome underglaze, either creamware or pearlware. But if you look really closely, you can see this is very delicately hand-painted, multiple colors. Very, very beautiful. Not an uncommon type at this site. Not an uncommon type of ceramic, period. But you can see you can be fairly aggressive with it. And on these earthenwares, they have very sturdy glazes. It's not going to peel off. There are some other ceramic styles that we have to be a bit more gentle with. What do we have here? Don't know what this is. This might actually reveal itself as we clean it. Just maybe a simple creamware. A lot of creamwares in this setting. That's not a very common ceramic type at the site. So here's a nice, probably a transfer print pearlware. So this is very typical for the types of artifacts we find on archaeological sites. They're very fragmented like this, but they can still be identified, and we actually know the date ranges of production. Let me bring that close. You can see that's a transfer print, probably a pearlware. In this blue, cobalt blue. Nice. And frankly, our most common type of ceramic. Oh, I was just to finish my thought. We know the dates of production of all of these ceramic styles. Most of them, I should say. And that actually is the main way that sites like this are dated, using a statistical formula called mean ceramic dating. Very accurate, very precise dating technique that uses these names. This is called a red earthenware. These are more utilitarian, and we find lots and lots and lots of these at the site. More red earthenware. And here's an interesting piece. Let's see if you can guess what this is. Non-archaeologists in the audience, and I'll tell you in just a moment. It is a fragment of something. Let me show you it from different angles, and you might be able to tell. No particular distinctive marks on this, but so, what do you think? Any guesses? This is a fragment of a ceramic smoking pipe. Tobacco smoking pipe, made in England, sometimes called kaolin pipes or white ball clay pipes. And the bowl of the pipe would be right here. And then the rest of this stem would, I sometimes call these Gandalf pipes, although they're not really that long, right? But that's the style we're talking about. The stem would go on a long way, and they get fragmented. We find these little teeny pieces. But this is a nice piece because we have what's called the shank here. We have the connection point between the bowl and the stem, which is nice. Gives us a little bit of information. This nice little foot here is also a bit diagnostic, so in line, I think, with an 18th century date for the site, which is what mostly what we're looking at this site. That's a nice piece. Anything else? Let's do a few more lovely ceramics. These are ones that are similar to ones we found previously here, but just to continue giving a chance to look at how nice and lovely these are. Oh, that's more interesting than I thought it was going to be. So I think what we have here is a very delicate green shell-edged pearlware. Very pretty. A little bit more interesting than I thought it was going to be. One of the nice things about the artifact cleaning process is things just look like generic artifacts in the field will reveal themselves to be more interesting as you get them cleaned. A little bit of yellowware, maybe. And then we've got a last couple pieces of redware here. So yeah, like I said at the beginning, this whole channel is an experiment in public pedagogy and teaching about real archaeology from different angles. And so I'm interested, if you think this kind of video is cool, let me know in the comments and give it a like, a subscribe, and give me that feedback, because I can make more of these, and frankly, this is a tiny fraction of the types of artifacts that we get at a site like this. And so I could show you a lot more, frankly. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time.